Mr. Curran on a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I know that the hour is late, but I would also like to thank Speaker Carl Hastie and also Majority Leader Joe Morelli for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this resolution. I have the privilege today of putting forth this resolution honoring the life of New York City Police Detective Stephen McDonald. Many of you know Stephen McDonald's public life started on July 12, 1986. On that date, New York City police officer Stephen McDonald, who was 29 years of age, a third-generation police officer with 2 years on the police force, was on patrol with his partner in Central Park. At about 4:15 p.m. on that date, they stopped 3 boys who had been reported to be loitering in the northern section of Central Park by the boathouse. Officer McDonald began to speak to the boys when one of the boys pulled out a handgun and shot Officer McDonald 3 times at point-blank range. The first bullet hit Officer McDonald in the head above his eye. The second hit his throat and caused him to have a speaking disability. The third shattered his spine, paralyzing him and leaving him a quadriplegic and with the need of a ventilator for the remainder of his life. Approximately 9 months after being shot in Central Park, and after countless medical procedures and surgeries, which paralyzed Stephen from the neck down and relegated him to a wheelchair, Stephen issued a public letter forgiving the young shooter for the incident and stated that he hoped that the young man found peace and purpose in his life. Following that public letter, Stephen sent to the incarcerated youth a box of stamps and envelopes so that they could communicate on a more regular basis. And for several years, they did just that, with Stephen trying to help the young man find that very peace and that very purpose in his life. Stephen said, "I forgave because I believed that the only thing worse than receiving a bullet in my spine would have been to nurture revenge in my heart." Stephen lived those words every day and became a symbol of forgiveness. He routinely visited schools to speak to kids about his faith, about the cycle of violence and the power of forgiveness. Stephen made trips to Northern Ireland in the hope of creating a reconciliation between Catholics and Protestants. Stephen's tireless work in trying to make people's lives better was highlighted by his favorite hockey team, which unfortunately was the New York Rangers, who created the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award in 1987 and is given to the Ranger player who goes above and beyond the call of duty on both the ice and off the ice. He was, by all accounts, an inspiration to an entire city, the police officer who overcame insurmountable odds to remain to live and ultimately forgave the teen who almost killed him. There are very few individuals that you meet in this world that instantly gain your respect and admiration. Stephen McDonald was one of those very few and rare individuals. Stephen lived a life that inspired everyone around him to be better human beings, a person who, due to one of life's random, unexpected, unexplained, and yes, unfair events, had every right to be bitter, angry, and despondent, was instead forgiving, kind, and hopeful. Stephen's compassion and kindness were evident every day, and in the years that followed the shooting, when we should have been caring for Stephen, he instead gave us great comfort in his courage, but even more importantly, confidence in the human spirit through his actions. On January 10, 2017, almost 31 years after the Central Park shooting that started his very public life, Officer Stephen McDonald, age 59, died after suffering a heart attack 4 days earlier. Not unexpectedly, thousands of people attended his wake and funeral to say a final goodbye to the man that no one wanted to be, but everybody wanted to be like. Stephen is survived by his wife, Patty, and his son, Connor, who was born 6 months after the shooting and is currently a sergeant in the NYPD. Both Patty and Connor will be in the Capitol tomorrow to receive this resolution. While our thoughts and prayers remain with Patty and Connor, Stephen's passing has left an emptiness in the hearts of everyone who met him, in the hearts of all police officers, and in the collective heart of a small village of Malvern, which Stephen and Patty made their home after the shooting. But that emptiness is filled with when one remembers how Stephen McDonald showed all of us how to live one's life based upon love and forgiveness in a world that desperately calls for each. And for that, Officer McDonald, I say thank you. And to all of you, I encourage all of my colleagues to please vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.